Hi there, this is Solitary Ronan from Solitary Ronan Films, and welcome to another random review. Today's random review comes from 1977, and it comes from Canada, and it's One Man, written and directed by Robin Spry. This is another C.I.P, Canadian International Pictures film, a Vinegar Syndrome partner label. And as I've said before, these partner labels, well, at least 3 of them are absolutely wonderful. So Robin Spry was mainly a kind of documentary short film director who did some features. He's Canadian, moved to England, and went back to work for the Canadian Film Board. And this film is kind of shot like a documentary, so it's a very kind of in your face, kind of, as far as cinematography, there's no exquisite shots or anything like that. This is about characters and story. So this follows a TV reporter who we're introduced to. He gets a call. Well, bizarrely, we're introduced to him as he's being carried down the streets of Montreal by a woman on her shoulders. And it turns out it's just a woman he met in the street, and the 2 women and him and his cameraman just part ways in the street, and that's kind of the opening title. So that's how we're introduced to him. A man who would let a woman carry him on her shoulders down the street, and then him and his cameraman get a call about some business under an underpass, strangely enough, as opposed to over an underpass. And as they drive up, shots are being fired and there's bodies on the ground, and they get chased by the shooters. So you think the film is going to be about this investigation of the shootings, and it's not really, because while he's at the hospital, he comes across this social worker who's got a sick child. Well, all children are sick, really, but gets a sick child, and this isn't the first. And she believes, as well as the doctor, one of the doctors in the hospital, that this may be due to a leak at a local factory, which is causing these children to become sick and die. Now, obviously, this kind of setup is very familiar. In actual fact, One Man has a lot of the things that are in Michael Mann's Insider. Now, obviously, aesthetically, they're completely different films, but certainly at the TV station, there's a Christopher Plummer kind of character in The Insider, played by Sean Sullivan, who was Christopher Walken's dad in The Dead Zone. So you still have that kind of dynamic at the TV station, the same, the older, kind of a wiser head, theoretically, that was in The Insider. Obviously you've got Dark Waters with Mark Ruffalo. This is a nice Nova Media Steelbook, but never mind, that's just a... And again, these films can be kind of dry, it's literally one man or one woman against a big global organisation or whatever, or a big company. You've obviously got the China syndrome, you've got Michael Clayton, you've got plenty of other examples. But it comes back to, well, why should you watch One Man, a Canadian film from 1977? Well, again, because of the way it's shot, it is more, because some of these ones are can be dry and procedural, But this is much more emotional for the characters, and it's kind of shot that way. So you can kind of guess some of the beats, but it's just done very well and performed very well. Len Cariou is the reporter called Brady, which is obviously quite off-putting. And he isn't the greatest human being in the world. I mean, he has a wife, he has 2 young sons and a baby as well. But he starts having feelings with the social worker, those kind of feelings. It's in that sense it's kind of predictable, and there's a wonderful supermarket showdown with his wife because she can smell the other women on him. But what's more interesting is really, the choices. So at the start, you think it's going to be about this number of murders in the underpass. But the criminal, or the head honcho criminal, his nickname is the Hyena, who people think was responsible for these deaths. He arranges an interview with the reporter in a motel just to say, I'm not responsible, even though the police want a word with him. But he's more interested in the sick kids because he knows some of those sick kids. Because as we know, criminal kingpins may be responsible for all this crime and murder and robbery and prostitution and drugs, but they have some standards. They worry about sick kids and things like that. And he pretty much asked the guy, do you want me to go to the factory? Do you want me to arrange somebody at the factory to disappear? Which is kind of funny, because there's no way a couple of straight guys like you and your cameraman's ever going to get to the bottom of this. And then the story develops from there, but it's a nice little interlude when you've got this violent kingpin called the Hyena, but he's worried about those sick kids. The head of the company is suitably bearded and has an unseen drinks cabinet in his office that you just push the walls in and the drinks come out, which is very nice. And obviously he's offering certain things, and as I said before, there's the typical pressure put on the television station not to run the story. People get threatened, but then it just escalates. And there's some hilarious scenes, well, not really hilarious, of the escalation, but it's more about the moral choices. For example, Brady's wife initially is like, she's fed up of his kind of one-man campaign against the world in general, but then obviously he's focusing on this company. She would rather he stayed at home and wrote books. But then when the family starts getting threatened, the sick kids or the sick, dying, dead kids aren't as important as her own kids. And again, it just brings up the problems that we see around the world. Generally, people only get concerned when they're on your doorstep. The boss of the factory and the company at one point kind of says, if we close here, obviously we'll have unemployment and we'll have all these people out of work, and that affects all their families. And they would just open up in another country in South America or Asia, and then you wouldn't be bothered about that because it would be that other country's problem. And as we know, this is 1977, and most of these companies were dumping toxic waste and everything else, carcinogens in rivers and things like that, which of course nobody does anymore, because some countries have signed a bit of paper, but of course the biggest offenders haven't signed a bit of paper, so I'm sure no massive global multinational companies do that kind of thing anymore. You can sleep easy. But again, it's that if the problem's away over there and it's in another country, then I don't have to think about it. It doesn't affect me. It doesn't affect my children. So that's perfectly all right. And again, if you're getting to, you're going to lose your job if you take this stand. Your family's in danger. The social worker, she's got pressure on her. The doctor is now being questioned for his competency. So Brady makes a decision, and then later he makes another decision. But you'll have to watch the film to see how that is. All I would tell you is this is made by a documentary filmmaker kind of first. That's Robin Spry's kind of first hat. It's in the 70s. The closing titles are wonderful. One of the best closing titles for... It doesn't have the text that comes up telling you the really depressing facts as a voiceover, which is absolutely wonderful. But again, it's a story that we've seen before. Let's be honest, there's only supposed to be about 7 stories in the world anyway, but it is another very worthwhile addition, and it's something different to the kind of genre of investigative journalism. Finds out something terrible and then is pressured from all sides to shut up about it, basically. So there's the alternate artwork. I mean, children become sick, there's a cover-up, one man knows the truth. It was a winner of 7 Canadian Film Awards. As with all C.I.P, you get reversible artwork and a lovely booklet, because the final scenes are very powerful and very well done. And as usual with the C.I.P releases, this is spine number 22, there is a veritable ton of special features. There's an audio commentary by filmmaker and historian Stephen Broomer. One Sister from 2023, which is a 10-minute interview with Robin Spry's sister. One Friend from 2023, which is a 13-minute interview with Spry's longtime collaborator Bob Presner. There's 5 short films directed by Spry. So we've got Minor, with an E, from 1966, which is 19 minutes long, about minors, strangely enough, which is really depressing. Changing the Maritimes from 1966, which is 13 minutes, which is really depressing. Illegal Abortion, I don't need to tell you what that's about, from 1967, which is 25 minutes long, which is, I mean, it's funny looking back at it, obviously, but yep. Ride for Your Life, 1967, for 10 minutes, which is about a motorcyclist who pretty much breaks everything but is determined to get back on his motorbike. Downhill, which is 1973, which is 36 minutes. The Dowry from 1969, which is 20 minutes, which is a short film written and directed by one-man co-writer Peter Pearson. We have Cell 16, which is 1972, which is 14 minutes long, which is a short film written by one-man co-writer Peter Madden. Red Shoes, not that one, from 1986, which is 24 minutes long, which is a short film featuring one-man co-star Carol Lazar, who plays the social worker, and there's a bonus short, Traffic Copter, from 1972, which is 10 minutes, which strangely enough is about a traffic copter, and the theatrical trailer. So as usual with C.I.P, it's absolutely stacked with extras, and it's a lovely little film about not living too close to factories that produce nasty things. So please let me know in the comments if you've seen One Man and what you think about it, and what is your favourite kind of in journalist gets a story and then gets in too deep and is then threatened and then has to make moral decisions for him and his family or her. And obviously some of these films have triumphant endings where the company has to pay millions of dollars to them, and other films are a bit more realistic than that, where the companies get a slap in the wrist and continue to do what they're doing because some of their shareholders are in governments, and give them backhanders and tax breaks and things like that. So thanks very much for watching. Please let me know, as I said, if you've seen this happy-go-lucky tale, and hopefully join me again for more random reviews. This is Solitude Ronan from Solitude Ronan Films, saying farewell.